Alright, so welcome back to another scenario video. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at what if the three strongest nations in Africa went to war with the rest of the continent. I should have done 5 to make it slightly more fair, but this just makes more sense as these nations are really strong. And some nations, like over here, for example, are not too strong, but not too weak either. I think these two are like almost 90. So, yeah, that's pretty good. But, you can skip this if you want to. But thank y'all for the recent support on these videos. I don't know. Like, the What If Cambodia Formed an Empire and What If Rome Couldn't Stop Expanding videos. Those have been doing pretty good. I'm trying to keep it consistent now, especially with school starting, so I mean, that makes it a little harder, but it's not that big of a deal. Anyways, sorry for my yapping session. Let's jump straight into the scenario. What if Algeria, Egypt, and Nigeria fought the rest of the continent? And I think this capital's outdated. I think their capital's up here now. But it's okay, we'll keep it for this video. I'll change it after this, but it's just not too significant. Anyways, we're going to start off with every country being prepared. I mean, not having front lines set up, because if that were to happen, these three nations would fall way too fast. Like, these nations down here still have to, like, move forces up to, like, Nigeria and Egypt. But they know the war's happening and they're fully mobilized. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's jump straight into the video for the third time of me saying this. So rapidly, Nigerian forces push into Cameroon, and I also think this capital is outdated now, but yeah. Anyways, Nigerian forces begin to do some very good damage into Cameroon, cutting this area off, but it doesn't really change anything, because, yeah. But yeah, they make a slight push into Chad, just wanting to cut off logistics from right here, just keep pushing, either get to this capital, or just hurt supply routes enough to they can't, help Chad's capital out. And I don't know why they don't have capital. Anyways, Egyptian forces rapidly push into Sudan, wanting to take Port Sudan, which is like right here. So they push down the coast, and the Battle of Port Sudan begins. And they also make a little invasions over here into the Sahara Desert. It's not doing a lot of damage, but let's actually turn on rivers for this, so you can see the Nile. Anyways, Algeria is going to have a pretty easy time going after Tunisia, as their capital is very secure up here, and it's not, like, down here, because if it was down here, then they would look something like that pretty quick. But they're going to be doing pretty good, as they are very strong, and stronger than all their neighbors, but you don't forget, they're fighting the strongest nation that any of these countries are fighting right now, which is Morocco. I don't think Libya's too strong. Sorry. And, plus they're getting invaded from two sides, so not good. And if Niger falls and Libya falls, they would all be connected, and this area over here would rapidly collapse. Anyways, we're going to be seeing Algeria losing massive lands in the Sahara Desert, as these nations down here just try to gain as much ground as possible, as quickly as possible. But it doesn't really affect them that much, as, yeah. But Niger is able to make a push to this river, as we see Nigeria not being able to push back over this river, as most forces are situated down here. As they push up against this river, then they flood over it, taking the capital of Cameroon very quickly. as they begin to follow this river to the border of Kar and Gabon. As very rapidly we see Cameroon surrender and Chad's capital rapidly fall. As with a decent nation surrendering like that, it's not the best for the rest of the continent, but reinforcements are starting to arrive here from South Africa, so expect some massive gains soon. Anyways, Nigeria is able to take these 3 capital cities, actually these 4, as Nigeria is just way stronger, and they just want to get it done. They just want to knock out these nations, as if these nations rally their people, then they would have a way harder time, which would not be good, as they just decide to push up to this river for the most part, while special forces keep this area occupied. But rapidly, they push into Equatorial Guinea and take Gabon's capital. But coming back up here, we see Tunisia's capital falling, and they fall, with Libya's capital also falling, and the rapid deterioration of Libya, as Egyptian and Algerian forces meet up in the middle of the Libyan Sahara Desert, as the last real Libyan holdout is up here, as they're able to keep fighting in the city, but over time it slowly gets pushed as forces slowly begin to push into the city. Egypt wins the Battle of Port Sudan, but at this point Ethiopian and the East African forces begin arriving en masse. So Egypt decides to follow down the Nile, deciding to do the most damage. As if the further south they get, the closer to the capital they get. So, yeah. And knocking out Eritrea would be great, as they won't be able to, as Eritrea won't be able to use their navy to fight up here, or like make battles up here, or ruin the Suez Canal using Ethiopian supplies and stuff. So their goal is just to win the Battle of the Red Sea and push down here and destroy Eritrea. But rapidly, Nigeria is gonna start losing some ground up here. It's not a lot, it's just they're not really too focused on this area, as they don't really care about meeting up with these 2, as they're doing great over here alone. So they just decide to they decide to focus down here and fight off DR Congo's forces that are hurting their supplies over here. But yes, they are allowed to trade with nations outside of Africa, but it's not, no one else can join on either side. So, yeah. Anyways, Algerian forces are able to make the push back, gaining more of their Saharan desert areas, as they decide to make it the goal to meet up with Nigeria. And Nigeria, seeing this and getting a diplomat, they decide to send forces up here to fight Niger. But over here in Burkina Faso, forces are able to push them back a little bit. It's not by a lot, it's just threatening. And this capital city is re-liberated, and they get closer and closer to the city every day. But coming over here, Nigerian forces also get surrendered, with superior numbers flooding into these areas. This city makes a massive holdout, but over time, the Nigerians just decide to flee to these islands, where they build a massive port and bombard the coast. But going off that, the Nigerians decide to take Niger's capital, And yeah, they take the capital and they push into Mali. It's not by a lot, it's just they do it. And seeing this, Mali is forced to draw back their troops. Same with Niger. As Niger and Mali were focusing up in Algeria, seeing them as the bigger threat, even though Nigeria is way closer to your capital. But very rapidly, Algerian forces meet up with Nigerian forces in the middle of the Sahara Desert, as they make multiple supply routes, and we see this area falling. With extra support, Nigeria can focus on Burkina Faso, pushing up against this river and taking the capital. Not pushing too deep because they gotta focus all over here, as most of their forces are situated over here, as it's not great, as South Africa, Ethiopia, Tanzania, even Madagascar, and the Congo are fighting over here, like, sending most of their forces over here. But somehow Nigeria is still fighting. It's either morale, propaganda, or just they don't want to lose. And very rapidly, this whole part of the Sahara Desert begins to fall. Chad begins to lose land up here. Niger decides to surrender. Massive parts of Chad do as well. Even parts of Sudan surrender. And since all these three nations met up, it's wonderful that they did. Because they can focus over here. Like Nigeria and Algeria can focus over here. And into this area. While Egypt and most of Nigerian forces can focus over here. So now that they've met up in the Sahara, it's only a matter of time before Sudan's capital falls and the door opens to Lake Victoria. And after Lake Victoria falls, this whole area falls as well. So prepare yourselves, Africa, as the massive three nations, the strongest in your continent, are on the doorsteps of destroying the continent. As I'm not sure who America would be supporting at this point. I would think they'll be rooting for the underdogs, which is the blue team, but you never know. Anyways, Algerian forces make a massive push over here into the deeper Sahara Desert, taking Western Sahara and the capital of Mauritania. As with these massive gains that are not too valuable, let's just get rid of that, but it's just the slight amount of resources they're getting is helping them a lot. Anyways, Nigerian forces retake this capital, and they take all of Liberia. And now America is probably definitely rooting for the blue team. But coming over here, Egypt is not having a field day, as they're actually fighting for their lives. As with superior Ethiopian, DR Congan, and South African forces just flood into this area, as Egypt is the first nation to rapidly deteriorate. As Nigeria and Algeria got this area on lock, but they're not really focusing over here, as that's pretty much all Egypt's job. And with superior forces, more numbers, and less numbers, we see that Egypt is forced all the way back up here to their more valuable parts. But Egypt uses their massive population to make a slight comeback, as yes, they begin to send like 14-year-olds to the front lines, which is a sign of desperation, which only boosts the morale of the blue team, as they make a counteroffensive over here, trying to cut off the supply routes from the Nile, and as second force moves up here, trying to take the Suez, as they make a as they sail a boat across, and Egypt begins to see the light. As Nigeria also rapidly does too, as Cameroon's capital gets reliberated, and with Chad rapidly getting reliberated, they might be cut off again. So, Algeria, in a sign of desperation for their allies, launches a massive million-man army into Morocco. This army is numbers Africa has never seen before, but with just the massive numbers, they're able to knock out Morocco, and they send most of their entire army down here to clear it up. As they tell Nigeria, to fight over here. No matter what, keep fighting. As they got this area. As Nigerian forces begin to leave, we see this area gaining massive chunks of land back. But Algeria, no need to fear, Algeria is here as they rapidly push in with an army that surpassed 3 million, which is almost their entire army, except 300,000, which is over here. But it's too late, as the day, or around the time that this area falls, we see the Sahara Desert rapidly getting reliberated. We see Egypt's land being encircled and rapidly falling. We see the Sinai Peninsula also falling. And with Cairo and Alexandria surrounded, Egypt surrenders. As with this, Libya almost completely gets reliberated, except this area where Algeria keeps fighting. But Nigeria. As we rapidly see Nigeria begin to fall, as they can't fight the massive army. They try to rally their people, but yeah, the numbers. With the numbers that they have, they should have the number advantage, but people are not fighting. As pretty much everyone in the nation rapidly begins to cower in their homes. This area over here rapidly begins to get reliberated, as Algeria can't hold this front alone. Nigeria falls around this point, and it was only a matter of time before we saw this happen. As Algeria did kind of come out victorious, so they're going to be gaining some land as war reparations, pretty much. But the first thing that's going to be happening is they're going to be losing this chunk of land to Niger, yeah. But with that, let's get to what they gain. They gain a straight line right here, which looks like that, and then that, let's just fix that, and then they get this area. And how can I forget about what they get from Libya? They get Tripoli and this city over here. As they become pretty massive after this, they're happy with what they got, and they did gain something from this war, unlike their allies, which lost miserably. And this is what Algeria looks like. I guess we could include Libya, but it's just that and that. So this is what Algeria looks like. Do we do the borders of the other nations? Nah. So the only real victor here is Algeria, but everyone in the continent hates them. Even their former allies. Anyways, if you enjoyed, you should probably like and subscribe. Anyways, have a wonderful day. And if this quality or my voice is quiet, I don't know why. Anyways, goodbye!